Hey, JulesBlessedVegan, and as always, welcome to my channel. And for those of you who are new, I know you can benefit. So, good news, bad news, who knows? That was a fantastic talk that I heard from this priest, and I was just trying to recall all of it because I didn't write it down and I don't even have access to it, but it was so fantastic, and I think it's worth reiterating at a time where people are feeling like if they get sick from the coronavirus, it is really bad luck. If they don't get sick, it's really good luck. But who knows? And it's because, and I've given a talk before on the importance of zooming out, like zooming out and trying to see the big picture. Because sometimes when we focus too intensely on just one element, like one action in our life, and I hear this all the time where people will say, well, when I was, 2 years old, my dad got shot, and that determined their whole life, right? When I was 6, I was molested, and if you knew, determined their whole life. When I was 9 years old, I was bullied in 3rd grade and determined their whole life. I got married really young, and my husband was abusive, determined their whole life, okay? So we've got to zoom out, because in the big picture, and that's what I want to reference, and this, of course, is from the Bible, Romans 8, verse 28. And it reads, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." And that is so important, because if we believe that, if we dare to believe that, and let me say it again, we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. If we can believe that, then we know that everything seemingly is good luck, because the end game will be for the good of God's will in our life. All right, so let me give some examples that he gave, which were so fantastic. So he started out by saying that there was this family that got a beautiful horse in a very small town. All the town knew, and they all kept saying, "That is such good luck. Congratulations. Oh my gosh, that horse is so beautiful. It is going to change your family. That is such good luck." Well, a day or two later, their son fell. The horse stumbled, fell, and broke the son's leg. So, of course, the same small town came and said, "Oh, that horse was terrible luck. It's terrible that you got that horse." And then, incredibly, war broke out, and the people suddenly had, I want to say the law, but whatever, coming into their town and taking all eligible boys to go to war. And because that child's leg was broken, he didn't get to go. Oh, what good luck. Like, they couldn't see it. How can you see it? But that was the blessing in that life. Another situation was incredible when we go back into the Bible with Joseph, who was the 12th son of Jacob, right? And his brothers were really cruel and awful to him. Oh, such bad luck. He ended up being sold into slavery. Oh, such bad luck. But he ended up in Egypt. And after years in prison and everything else, he recognized by God, who was working for the good of those who are called, was built up through the ranks and suddenly became governor of Egypt. Oh, what good luck, right? And then his brothers, who had sold him into slavery, found themselves having to go to Egypt to get goods, because there were none. There was famine or whatever, and they didn't even know that that was their brother. He, in that time, his heart had been healed and changed, and he'd grown. And when his brothers came, oh, such terrible luck that they didn't have anything and had to come to Egypt to get supplies, saw that their brother was the governor of Egypt, which scared them to death, because it meant he had all the power in the world and could put them to death. So, oh, what terrible luck for those brothers. Except for Joseph's heart had changed and been formed by God, and he had the grace to forgive them. Oh, what good luck. So you know what I mean? it just changes every second. Another situation was St. Francis of Assisi, who I'm very fond of. He's the one who prayed with the animals, and the animals would listen to his sermons, which is so sweet. And he was in the 1260s, which is when St. Juliana was also hanging on the planet, and a lot of other fantastic people. But for him, he was like from a very wealthy family and had everything he could possibly want. He was basically a party animal and didn't care that much about faith. Catholic was all around him, but why, right? And I think that's true. When you have money, you don't necessarily need to call on God, or so people think. So he was just kicking it. And then at 20, they had a civil war break out in Assisi between the haves and have-nots. And he had, but the have-nots apparently were winning. And he was thrown into a dungeon, a literal disgusting dungeon with rats and disgustingness, whatever. And he was in jail for that for like, I don't know, I think it was 13 years. Forgive me, I should look it up. But whatever it was several years. And when he finally was released and came back to all his monies and everything else, and all his friends wanted to party with him just like before, he couldn't, because he was changed in his heart. He couldn't party just like before. He couldn't return to that because God had been working on him, which God so often does. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. And as a result of that change, he had to step away from what could have been a bunch of wealth and recklessness and all of those things. And of course became all that he became and the saint that we know him to be today. So there's a lot of examples of that. So right now, when we're struggling, I can't count the number of conversations and times over the last few years as the pace of our world has just been increasing towards insanity. And as a result of the reckless abandon, we've had so many problems, right, with our climate change, with the haves and have-nots, with people not communicating anymore. I was just talking about social media and people not having communication skills because they're not required to talk face to face. And in the midst of all of this, seemingly, and I'm not saying that God gave us the coronavirus, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that God gave the plague or any of those other things, that God gives cancer to make a point. No, I am not saying any of that. I do not believe any of that. What I know is that in the human condition, the choices that humans make, and in the frailty of this body, which is temporary, whereas the soul is eternal, God finds a way to allow us to grow and to learn and to prosper despite our circumstance. And the grace is definitely in being able to see God in the details despite the hardships of whatever the moment is. Because it may not be cancer for you, but it'll be something. It may not be the plague, but it'll be something. I mean, just by virtue of being humans on this planet, we are challenged. And if we can find God and his grace in that challenge, it doesn't get better than that, seriously. And I was just listening to those stories of the saints and what they went through. And though I am by no means a saint, though I completely believe that we are all called to be saints and that we are all called to strive towards saintlyhood, I give all glory to God for the heart that I possess, for the ability for me to be compassionate, for my desire to love and to give service, to be able to laugh and give laughter to people. If I was reading my story from afar and I read about so many blessings, let's be fair, so many blessings. I mean, to come from such a talented, able, intelligent family, to have so many siblings and things to bounce off of, to have access to things as a child, from ballet to gymnastics to swim team to drill team to like all those things, music, all the things that my parents subjected me to. There was a lot of hardships. There was a lot of physical violence. There was a lot of sexual indiscretion, with people outside of my home. I was raped. I mean, there's no question. I had to fight through alcohol and pills and drugs. And there were times when I was in a food line, for not having anything. When I slept in my car a couple of times. When I certainly was disassociating from what appeared to be mental illness, and yet now I know for the 8 drugs that I was on, it was causing so much of that, right? The times that I was out of work, again, only grace of people and their generosity and support of me, allowing me to get through that. My hard work of going to counseling for 10 years, of going to the 12-step program meetings for years and years, for daring to allow myself to be vulnerable. Yeah, I did all that work. But the courage to do all of that was God's grace. Rejection, galore, always attempting the next tryout, the next audition, the next, every single thing. I kept stepping up. But to be rejected so many times and still show up, all of that, just God, 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 God. And I really believe that I am at best at the halfway mark of my life. Which I know puts me over 100 in the end game, but I can understand why God would do that, because I am such a willing person to serve and to learn and to be molded and to ask Him to tug at my heart and to continuously show me His intention for me. So luck or bad luck, who knows? But what we can count on is that God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. Say yes, my friends. It is always the better way. All right, so we are doing random acts of kindness, as this is Lent, which is the 45 days before Easter, when Jesus has His death and resurrection. And I'm going to end with that one. And I'm actually going to ask you, Christian or not, to ponder the luck or bad luck. Who knows? I think we do know, but I'm going to ask you to ponder that for a moment, even if you're a person who's not even a Christian, to just go, what is the deal with that Jesus guy? And why do people believe not only that He was killed on a cross, which was a common Roman practice, let's be fair, but that He rose from the dead? For Christians, there's over 500 eyewitnesses who wrote about their testimonies in seeing Jesus after His death. So historically, we feel we have actual evidence beyond people just hoping it were true. But for those who can't even get their head around it, that's okay. I'm not going to ask you to accept the death and resurrection in this moment. But I'm going to ask you to ponder, was that luck or bad luck for people that this incredible prophet, and people don't deny that, the Messiah for some, and many do not deny that, because Messiah is just like a really good teacher, right? A prophet is a really good teacher. Not even the majesty of realizing that He's God in human form in the incarnation, but just the incredible story of all of that. For me, of course it was bad luck that He was crucified, that at 33 years old He was taken out, because what would the world be like had He lived to be 34, 35, or 45? I mean, what would that have been like? How much more would we have gained? I don't know. So yes, that was bad luck. Resurrecting 3 days later, as He continued to affirm and promise that the temple will be rebuilt after 3 days. Good luck. Amazing. Opening the door to salvation for everyone who dares to believe. Good luck. So at the time when the apostles were hiding in the upper room and so devastated and didn't even want to go out, as we are in quarantine, whether we want to or not, what did Jesus continue to say? Peace be with you. Peace be with you. Several times. Peace be with you. And so that's the random act of kindness for tomorrow. I want to keep doing random acts of kindness, but because of our circumstance, I don't know what I can ask of us, because so many things are face to face that we can't even do. So some of these have to be virtual. Inevitably, they'll be repetitious, and many of them have to be in our heart. But as this suggested, God was working on all of those people, right? In what appeared to be bad luck, he was reforming their hearts and getting them ready for the good luck. And so in this moment of pondering in our heart, might you ponder the death and resurrection of that guy called Jesus Christ? I'd love to know. All right, my friends, like if you like, join us if you haven't, subscribe. Let me know in the comments below what you're thinking. I would love to support you. Know that I am on prayer patrol, like 24/7. God is waking me in my sleep. I am on it. Okay, and best of all, know that you're blessed.